So listen closely. But put the black man where day by day he sees how the white man keeps his lawns, his windows, how he treats his wife and children, and you will do more real helpful teaching than a whole library of lectures and sermons. Moreover, this will help the white man. If he, the white man, knows that his life is to be taken as a model, that is, ours, dress, manners, are all to be patterns for someone less fortunate, he will deport himself better than he would otherwise. Practically all the real moral uplift the black people have got from the whites, and this has been great indeed, has come from this observation of the white man's conduct. You know what, I don't allow hoots in my class, could you please? Remember my syllabus? And this has been, seeing the right again. Practically all the real moral uplift that black people have got from the whites, and this has been great indeed, has come from this observation of the white man's conduct. And so Washington believes, well, if the black man is going to observe how the white man keeps his lawns, how he keeps his windows, how he treats his wife and his children. You can't have him 50 miles from the white man, or you can't have him living 10 miles from the white man. You have to have them side by side so that he can look next door and see how the white man keeps his lawn and his windows, how he treats his wife and his children. And the white man, then knowing that he is observed constantly by the black man, will keep his lawn cleaner than, more finely cropped than he probably otherwise would keep his windows more sparkling, will not beat his wife, will deport himself in ways that are comely. The South today says Washington is still full of the type of Negro with gentle manners. Where did he get them? From some white master or mistress of the same type. So then, for Washington, whites are to be role models. A term, just for myself, over a long time now, I have just come to loathe that term, but that's just. But anyway, that whites are to be role models for blacks, and in emulating whites, blacks will improve themselves substantially in the society. Of course, it is interesting to note that Washington, as he tells us, takes his stand in regard to segregation, does not juxtapose that stand readily with the conduct of these 20 white men who walked out of that machinist shop rather than giving this young, well-prepared black man an opportunity to earn an honest day's living. So one may want to ask the question, how do these two things juxtapose in regards to Washington's own political philosophy and behaviors? Since after all this is a class in a university setting, Washington, in talking with students, he says, reflecting upon his time at Hampton, how often have I wanted to say to white students that they live, let me just pause here again, and what I'm about to read for you is another one of these observations of Washington, which just exposes himself to heavy broadsides from his critics in a context of what is perceived to be his indiscriminate flattery of white people. Washington says, "How often have I wanted to say to white students that they lift themselves up in proportion as they help to lift others." So I'm just reading cadence. How often have I wanted to say to white students that they lift themselves up in proportion as they help to lift others. And the more unfortunate the race, and the lower in the scale of civilization, the more does one rise oneself by giving the assistance. Read that one more time. How often have I wanted to say to white students that they lift themselves up in proportion as they help to lift others. And the more unfortunate the race, and the lower in the scale of civilization, the more does one raise oneself by giving the assistance. Well, let me just pause here. Any thoughts on that passage? Well, think about it. Think about it, and I will continue. Well, it is Washington's conviction that in this society, whites, whether as employees or as students or as just everyday acquaintances, insofar as they deport themselves in ways that are commensurate to their advantages in the society, they colorarily advantage themselves and they colorarily advantage black people, and of course, simultaneously themselves. What Washington is calling out here, class, is exemplar leadership. The concept of exemplar leadership, to lead by example. But of course, one can lead by good example. One can also lead by bad example. So exemplar leadership does not in and of itself entail good example. The example may indeed be horrendous, maybe most pernicious, even putrid. But it is Washington's belief that the sort of example that he's calling out is to place an onus on whites to behave in ways that they otherwise might not if their conduct were not constantly being watched and emulated by black people. And so Washington goes on to tell us that when everything is said and done, strike that, I didn't say that, how it came out of my mouth, I don't know, but one of these mindless cliches. It is Washington's belief that in spite of all the travails that black people have suffered in American society, it is still the case that they have prospered here better than any place else on the planet. It tells us that notwithstanding trials, the tribulations, the travails that blacks have suffered over those 12 generations of chattel slavery, and of course in the short generation and a half since chattel slavery, in the United States, they have better housing, they eat better food, they enjoy better clothing, they have more resources, and here now I'm just going to restrict resources to money, to spend, and more generally, just a broader array of opportunities to advance themselves in the society than anywhere else on the planet. And so he says clearly it is in their interest then, remember where I started last time, not just to dwell upon grievances, but to exploit opportunities that are at hand and more likely than not pass for naught insofar as one just wallow oneself in grievances. And so Washington uses his own life as an example. If I should read to you a little passage here, he was friends of presidents during the presidency of Theodore Roosevelt. Black individuals generally could not get an appointment in the federal government without it having been cleared by Booker T. Washington. W.E.B. Du Bois tells of Will Benson, and this was not for the federal appointment, but just to show you the influence of Washington. Benson was a young black man in Alabama whose father had land, and he had an idea. And today, for example, over on the county grounds, there's this research park where a number of high-tech, a combination of medicine and high technology are in play in regard to frontier kinds of research. There's a substantial one that has developed at UW-Madison today, centered increasingly now around stem cell research. Well, of course, remember my syllabus instruction. In North Carolina, there is a huge research park called the Research Triangle, involving North Carolina State, Duke University, North Carolina, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. In point of fact, Research Triangle, talking about models, it was to serve, or has served as a model for many other research parks around the country. Well, Will Benson had, interestingly, an idea of the same kind, that he would develop this area in which an array of different forms of entrepreneurial activities could merge. And of course, black people would be at the foundation of this, this venture.